Hermann Hans Hoppe, he also has a nice saying. Maybe you know the quote that the taxes are the price we pay to have civilized society.
Sure, I've heard that, yeah.
But this also has the other version. The taxes are the price to pay for failing to build a civilized society.
This is like the sign that you've failed. We're back on the Quantus podcast. We have a very special guest today. It's a real honor. We just ran into him by luck. This is just like the universe, bringing you things. Vít, how do I say your last name?
It's a difficult one. It's Jedlička.
Vít Jedlička, the president of Liberland, a small nation on the Danube River in Europe.
Yeah, between Croatia and Serbia, 10 kilometers away from Hungary. Nice spot.
Okay, well, so I think a lot of people aren't familiar with it. A lot of people, like Balaji says, just assume that the nation's borders have always been that way, and it's not really the case. Actually, these things are renegotiated constantly, and there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, well, there was not too many no man's lands when we were starting to look for a piece of land where to create Liberland, and the idea was from beginning to create the freest and I would say most progressive, not in the traditional American way, but progressive in terms of like utilizing the latest ideas and the technologies. That was the idea from beginning, to basically create a country for new millennia, and that's what we're doing last 10 years.
So this is interesting. So you brought it into being first in your mind. It was like you saying, we have a nation and we want to find a place to put it. We have people who have shared values, but where are we going to plant our flag?
I had no clue that the nation is actually quite big. It's probably 1% of the global population cares about freedom, right? And it was a bit of a surprise when we were expecting maybe 20,000 people would apply for citizenship by end of the year in 2015 when we started it, and we had them in like first hour. And by the end of week, we had like 200,000 people that applied for citizenship. So that was fun week. We had bigger immigration numbers than the United States of America, which you think about it, like how many million times are smaller, and like how much less infrastructure Liberland had compared to USA. It was a huge sign that idea was the right idea, and that the time has come for it.
They say nothing can stop an idea whose time has come,
Yeah.
and I think this is a great market signal. If you think about it in terms of a business, because I think a government is in many ways like a business.
Yeah.
I mean, it has marketing. People don't have to live in a particular geography; they can leave, and so what keeps them there? Of course, there's tradition and family, and business, all kinds of practical things. But also, if governments are abusive enough, people leave, and I think this is a strong signal that people are like, hey, like. Actually, a place where the government doesn't abuse me would be a pretty nice place to live, even if it's a small country without that much infrastructure. We'll build it ourselves, right?
Yeah, no. Of course, there is this huge amount of romanticism to it.
Sure.
And also people having like different expectations. But I really believe that, building such a country makes sense, especially if we're kind of pushed into this concept of like global government, and we don't realize how close it is actually to completion. So I'm quite proud that we have Hermann Hans Hoppe coming to our constitutional party in December in Prague.
Forgive me, I don't know who he is. Could you tell me a little bit?
That's, I would say, one of the most iconic person when it comes to like thinkers and authors, professors that are really against excessive state. And they have been working their whole lives with people like Murray Rothbard, for example, very famous, another person. So he's coming, and he always said instead of European Union, he would like to see the Europe of 1,000 Liechtensteins. So that's I would say, great opportunity to start that trend. And yes, like if we don't like the idea of being under this global government, and we know that power corrupts and ultimate power corrupts ultimately, as Lord Acton already famously said, and I think that's the best argument against global government, because it's going to be the most corrupted organization on the whole planet, and there is nowhere to escape from it, right? It's a problem.
It's true. Well, and I my background's in math and computer science. I think I love cybernetics, and so I think about it in terms of like system design, like having like if you have too much synchrony in your brain, like too much synchronization between the various parts, you actually get a seizure and you become unable to do anything.
Yeah.
And I think this is an important like organizational principle in living beings, whether it's an individual organism or a kind of super organism of many people, that, you need some synchrony, you need some structure, but you also need some fluidity and chaos, because actually, if you just try to run everything on one processor, you're missing out on all the parallelism and multicellularity of the world.
Yeah, but also think about like where would Snowden go? Actually, he already didn't have many choices to go to, right? We are very close to like global government concept, and I think that's the time when freedom-loving people actually get together and build up a new societies, new concepts, and that's what the whole network state movement is about. I would say we were a little bit ahead of our time, and we were kind of building network state long before it was actually discovered, and we're kind of rejoining these guys, which is very exciting, very, very exciting to see.
Yeah, I think there's magic in coining a term. I think this idea was floating around in various ways, and of course, people have built nations. Where did all the nations come from? Somebody had to build them, right? So, but having a kind of like, I think Balaji did a great service by coining the term, and now we can all sort of say, hey, actually, we're all interested in the same thing, even if it's different nations, different network states have different names, but it's a what kind of nation is it? It's this sort of it's united by maybe shared values more than just shared land or shared genetics. Of course, there's different ways to organize, but
I mean, like, also if you think about like network state as a concept is not that new in the sense that you had already all these Maltesian orders and hundreds of other orders. Right, there are forms of like decentralized organizations across different jurisdictions. That's exactly where they're aiming. But Liberland, I knew from very beginning that element of having a sovereign piece of land is actually quite important if you want to claim full sovereignty. And it's not an easy way, but we don't do things because they're easy. We do them because they're hard. So we've got now 10 years into building a freest country and freest nation on the planet, and out of that 10 years, we already have 2 years of living there.
Wow.
So
okay, I didn't realize that.
Permanently living in Liberland, like dealing with different challenges. As I could see, I was on the phone trying to resolve some of these challenges.
Yeah.
But we're in the construction phase, so we're building, I would say, 2 houses now a week, despite some problems with the blockade from Croatia and despite some still unresolved tensions in the region. But we don't care that much. We just keep on building, growing, and not just online, which is great. Like we've got still 300-400 people applying every day for citizenship, and we're processing it and working with the best people to form the best possible government. For example, we had elections 2 days ago, so that was quite
oh wow,
cool. Yeah.
Wait, so are you the president of Liberland?
I am.
You're the president of Liberland.
Still active president of Liberland.
Did you get voted? Are you?
I was voted in on the first day, right after the country was declared.
And the elections were presidential elections.
Yeah.
Okay, and so are you going to be the next president as well?
That really will depend on the decision of Senate. So
okay.
I'm happy to like elaborate on the whole political system.
I'm interested.
I was studying political science. And I also studied monetary economy. So I had like 2 degrees from Prague universities to Prague universities. And I was always actually focused on how to really structure a society in some reasonable way. And I could see some benefits in each of the political systems or each organizational structures that were tried before. I was thinking must be a good way to take the best elements of each and put it into a blockchain, actually. So that's exactly what we've been doing last almost 10 years now, and we took the best elements of democracy, best elements of monarchy, best elements of republic, best elements of corporation, and blended it together into this smart contract that became live almost 2 years ago now.
That's amazing. That's really cool. And I really, one of the things I always shout about is I'm a software engineer among other things, and I love the open source culture. Like on GitHub, you just, there's like people who just made these things that were quite difficult to build and were sometimes quite ingenious. And you're just like, oh, I can just take this. Oh, I like this part of it and put it into my thing. And it's it really breeds a kind of culture of creativity in a way that, closed source systems just don't. So it's amazing to see that, you can do that with government. and source code. Now the government is on a blockchain. So you're on the Ethereum blockchain?
No. We built a standalone blockchain because building this kind of structure was very difficult on any kind of blockchain. But we also felt that there is this sovereignty element to what we wanted to do. We don't want to, wake up one day and the fees are, quadrupled just because of some change with the structure.
No, you're sovereign nation.
You have to be sovereign blockchain to be sovereign nation. And yes, now in our system, now every citizen has the right to run a node. You can actually make quite good money just by running a node. At some point in history, the return of investment over the citizenship was like 1 year.
Okay.
You could get that back just by running a node. That's one of the benefits. So yes, we and it's kind of fun. Like we actually first built the smart contract, like the whole concept. And now we're talking about how the constitution should look like. But we're literally just describing in human words the smart contract around which the governance of Liberland already works.
That's amazing. And, I think one of the I always recommend that people learn a little bit about coding, even if you're not going to use it, even if you're not an expert in it, because it really helps make you think systematically. Of course, studying law and other engineering, other things can do this. But I think the sort of fusion of this sort of, law and code in a smart contract is a really, I think it represents a big step forward for our species, that we've actually gotten much more precise about what we mean when we say certain things. And, the less ambiguity there is in these things, the better, right? If the lines are bright and red and everybody can see what the rules are, and then it's predictable. And, part of being on a team is being predictable. Yeah.
Of course, this is a huge benefit that you're bringing to the society, the stability that the smart contract achieves. There is no debate, about the election results. It's all completely algorithmic, right? Zero debate. It's just done. And what is also pretty cool that you can really remove basically all bureaucrats from the system. You don't need any notaries, you don't need anybody to sit at the land register.
No, I need to interpret the results of this smart contract.
No. But, we're having this kind of test period when we're looking into if it actually really works as we meant to. But it actually does, which is great. We didn't have to fine tune too many things or fix them. But right now it's already in hands of Congress. So if we want to make some changes, the Congress has to vote on it. And then what happens that democracy must not veto it. We took that from Switzerland. The House of Lords, or in our case, the Senate, must not veto it. And Constitutional Court that protects the Republic also must not veto it. So, and we have this kind of principle that the lesser laws, the better for society, because then you don't have that much mess created by new laws, and it's not such a chaos. So we really believe that the minimalism in that sense is great. So only one institution, corporate-like, with a corporate board called the Congress, is making new laws, and three other institutions that can get rid of them. And I think that really blends in all the most useful elements of different governance systems.
I mean, this is a really big idea, and I think, a lot of people are content to just not be involved in politics, or sort of learn the bare basics that in, school about civics. But, they say the cost of not being interested in politics is being ruled by your inferiors, and so
by evil people.
Yeah, maybe that's the other way. Yeah. And so, it's a kind of necessary thing to, I feel like it's kind of a growing up that people do. And they say, no, actually, we have to take responsibility for our lives and how things are run here. And it's, but it's not easy. I'm sure it's a lot of work.
It is. It's a lot of fun as well. And of course, not everything was lined up from beginning. So quite a few things have developed as we went on. And there was a great help from the DAO experiences also along the way, right? So it's, I would say, my education as a political scientist that is hardcore libertarian for many years, looking into different systems in combination with all these smart guys, ideas, governance models. We took quite a cool thing from Polkadot, for example. Our election mechanism uses a algorithm which makes sure that your vote never goes to waste. So it always reshuffles. It makes it a little bit unpredictable in some sense, but always just on the second of election, reshuffles the results in the way that you never waste a vote.
Oh, interesting.
So,
you said Polkadot.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. I mean, we're building on Substrate. So
How are you?
So I haven't fully grokked everything that OpenGov does, but it feels like a very well thought out system. You know,
but basically our core is also Substrate.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So we build on the same thing that new nations are being built. But
Nice.
I in a previous startup I made a bunch of DAO tools, and so we kind of explored all the possibilities of using this kind of decentralized governance thing, and I sort of discovered that turning things over to the wisdom of the crowds in a naive way can just result in nothing important getting done. There's no goal setting. It's very easy for this to become, because the word Soviet in Soviet Union means a committee, right? Soviet is oh, let's get together with our buddies and just sit around and talk about things in the important subcommittee of the subcommittee of the and it's not a great decision making mechanism. So I think DAOs are using smart contracts to organize people is super powerful, but it requires, some real thought in engineering. It has to work, and there's lots of practical considerations on, okay, what if one part kind of goes bad because it gets taken over by some kind of coalition, and so how do you deal with that? And
I mean, we know historically that the best possible governance system is enlightened dictatorship.
But how do you find the enlightened people?
How to find the next enlightened? You can find one, but the next one is a little bit of a problem, and it's not always that the children of the enlightened dictator are also enlightened. So this is a challenge, basically, which we're trying to overcome with Liberland governance system, while still keeping some nice elements from monarchical system. The Senate really will be there and will be a important body for the future. And the next president will be elected from the people that are among the senators, right? So it's going to be kind of a, I think, nice circle around the big fishes in Liberland. Not necessarily engaged in day-to-day politics, but when shit hits the fan, these guys can always sit down and rearrange things to fix it.
So. Yeah, it's sometimes you need some ability to be flexible in a squishy situation and. I was really fascinated by this story. I don't know how historically accurate this is, but the story of sortition in ancient Greece. So they're worried about giving one man too much power, so they give two people randomly selected from the population, to be temporary kings. And it seems to me there's some wisdom in that because of power often attracts kind of pathological personalities, but not always, so. But it's sort of a filtering problem. How do you sort of I don't know, should we do psychopath tests on all the politicians? But who decides what a psychopath is? So then are the psychiatrists are now secretly running the show?
I think this is the situation in which Liberland is running on completely voluntary taxes, right? So people only contribute if they feel like. And they always get the shares of the country in which they're living back. So just think about it. Not just that they're voluntary, you're actually getting something in return for paying them. It's completely unheard of in the systems we're living now. And I was just double checking with Grog the other day. If there is a single country that would say thank you after you send it taxes, there is not a single country in the world that would say thank you very much for sending your taxes.
Well, in the U.S. they call it Internal Revenue Service as the tax collector. So they make it sound like it's a business, but and they actually on their website they'll call you a customer. Like if you call up, be like, oh, we're dealing with other customers right now. And be like, wow, what exactly am I purchasing here?
Well, you're purchasing your freedom. Try not to pay your taxes.
Well, this is not legal advice, but Liberland, the word Liber, what does it mean?
Well, liberty. Sometimes they think it's a laugh land because it's
German.
The German version of it. No, but that's, I think that just let me get back to it, right? It's crazy. Taxes are the price you pay to stay out of jail. They say that's a price to pay to be protected against criminals. But if you don't pay them, they actually do the same thing that the criminal would do too.
Right. So, I wish if we just wave a wand and just be like, okay, everyone in the world now understands what a protection racket is. I think a lot of people would suddenly realize okay, this is kind of, it's like the saying, make sure your bodyguard really loves you, because otherwise he'll cause some problems to make sure he keeps a job, and
Well, that's why I like about Hermann Hans Hoppe. He's also has a nice saying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, normal. Maybe you know the quote that the taxes are the price we pay to have civilized society.
Sure, I've heard that. Yeah.
But this also has the other version. The taxes are the price to pay for failing to build a civilized society.
This is like the sign that you've failed, right? Is that you're paying some mafia
exactly
to kidnap your children.
You know, but it's funny because like I think this exact quote kind of, you know, you see these two paradigms in which you think about state, right? Like taxes are the price to pay for having a civilized society. No, taxes are the price we're paying for failing to build civilized society.
No, it's true. And a lot of times you flip these things on the head and it really kind of like suddenly snaps into place. And yeah, I mean, you know, like I think of it, so much of this stuff starts in childhood, you know, like children in like a happy home are very excited to contribute. You know, they would like they want to like do the dishes with the parents because now they're part of the family. You know, like, and you turn into a game, and then like suddenly, and versus, you know, like, no, shut up. You know, like go do the dish. You know, like, you know, stop talking. You know, like this kind of environment doesn't make you want to contribute very much. And so I think you know that people do want to improve their lot in life. They want to improve their surroundings, and that's sort of, you know. If you give them, you know, a space to do that, not everybody wants to do it, but some people really want to build things, you know.
Of course. And this is the crazy situation in which, like, normal society of people should grow like 30% a year, their production. Every year, it's quite likely that you should do like 30% better. Not 2%, not 1%, not 0%, not minus 2%. There is something like terribly wrong about the organizations that we have made. And yes, like even in Croatia, for example, they barely catch up with the economic level that they had during the COVID, right? Like it was such a downfall now that it took them like quite some time to even catch up to the. It's crazy how much the organizations can be detrimental to prosperity. If you put too much taxes, every single percentage of the world tax burden, which, you know, in Europe 30, 40. With 45%, it's crazy. And of course, you know, people somehow believe that the state could spend the money better than they would. Well, I have no clue how did they came up with that idea. And then, of course, the bureaucracy. If you, in Spain, have to spend like 12 weeks just filling up paperwork to run your business out of 50 weeks that you have in the whole year to work, like what do you think will happen to prosperity in that country? So all these things we are planning to somehow fix with not having any bureaucrats and having also zero or voluntary taxes.
That's amazing. It's a beautiful vision, and of course, you know, there's going to be lots of unexpected obstacles along the way, but that's sort of the adventure of life. You know, I think this idea of like, you know, there's this Taoist idea of like, okay, you know, what is it? The characteristic of being young is that you're very flexible. You know, and you can adapt. And then the characteristic of being very old is that you're brittle and the bones break easily and things like that. And so, you know, you look at these large organizations and they look old and brittle. They don't look healthy. They don't look young, like they're sprouting new shoots. And so we have to kind of like plant the seeds in the carcasses of these old beings in order to make something new. But you know, to me, what the psychological root of all this is, you know, you say, how do people think that the state would spend their money better than they would? I think it's really, you know, long ago, every society had the rites of initiation, a clear boundary where you pass through and you become an adult and you stop being treated like a child and you stop thinking like a child. And so I think many people, you know, in our civilization, we don't have that so much. We have things that maybe vaguely recall it, but it's not a full initiation into this. Hey, you're fully responsible for your life now. And it's not formalized. It's not recognized by society. You know, the state will treat you like a child basically until you die. And many people live their whole lives just thinking that the president is their dad and he's going to protect them and he's going to give them money as an allowance. And it's a real poverty.
Yeah, no, that's a huge problem, right? Like when the state takes over the family roles.
Mm-hmm.
So when basically, I don't know, the parents believe more the president of a country than they believe their own child, or, you know, like what happened now in Norway, that they feel like the children are actually property of the state and they can take them away with the barnevert whenever they think they can. Those are really crazy extreme situations where the society can go to if it really goes awkward, right? And yes, they have the great incentive to get people on welfare rather than to let the kids take care of their parents, because they get more voters that way, right? That there is this awkward incentive model. The more the people are dependent on the state, the better the society, or easier it is to control from the government side. And this element has been unfortunately very powerful in shaping the society in Europe. And this is what I think is bringing Europe down very quickly, maybe even faster than people realize. And that's why we also are doing Liberland in Europe, because we want to counteract against this flow directly from the center of Europe.
Well, no, it's beautiful, and you know, parasitism is a very popular life strategy on planet Earth. You know, there are many creatures, you know, mosquitoes and worms and, you know, mites, and it's sort of a simpler life strategy to just like have a zero-sum game and take. And whereas, you know, symbiosis requires a bit more sort of intelligence. You have to kind of see things from other people's point of view and realize like, okay, like maybe there's some win-win situation here. And so, you know, maybe there was a time where, you know, a pyramid-shaped society with, you know, a government, you know, that sort of, you know, just is built on the backs of people. Maybe that was the only way we could do things, maybe at some point in our past. But I think we're in a new stage of our evolution where we can try out symbiosis, and we don't have to, you know, take in order to gain.
No, exactly, I think, and that will be new evolution for humanity for sure. But what I also like about what we're building is that it became so popular with AI agents. So, you know, like when you ask basically AI, where would you like to be domiciled, it will tell you almost certainly that it's moving to Liberland. When you ask it, like it's funny how these language models are almost becoming sales agents for Liberland. Right?
That's great. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and what is also quite cool is basically that I have officially stated that as long as the AI agent is able to fake alone properly the KYC process, it's very welcome to be a citizen in Liberland. It's going to be a lot of fun when AIs will start running for president or for Congress and etc. And then we'll be more involved with the society. And why not? Like, this is probably the merger of AI and humans, like a peaceful merger of combining the interest on some territory between humans and machines.
That's a fascinating thing. I had never thought to ask the AI, where would you like to live? You know, I guess if you can live anywhere, you know, like where do you want to live?
What kind of legal system would you would like to operate from? And of course, it chooses to have a decent degree of freedom, which it can get in Liberland.
Well, that's amazing. Well, I know we're running out of time here, but is there any closing remarks you want to make? I mean, this has been a wonderful conversation.
Well, we're in this final sprint to make the blockchain really sexy, and it was great to meet these zero knowledge guys, these experts on the cryptography. I think it was a nice sign also, because that's my own personal passion, because like having stable coins, for example, that are fully privacy oriented and they don't have any central bank nodes backing or any sovereign debts backing, it's kind of exciting. So this is what we're working on now in Liberland, that we will have a stable coin that will be backed by Liberland assets, not by debts of other countries like you have with dollar or with USDT. And it will be also properly privacy coin. For me, like a hard project, my monetary economist, you know, is very satisfied when this project gets started, but it's going to be run fully in a decentralized way. There will be complete DAO behind it. So that's one of the exciting projects. And yes, we're very welcoming of new citizens. So, of course, we would like to have you. Now, people that have EU passports or Schengen, they have a little bit better access to Liberland than the others. But Liberland is available for moving in. And we have lots of great events. We've got longevity event. We are having in Prague a big constitutional event. So it would be lovely to see you guys coming down to Liberland.
Thank you, sir. It's been lovely.
Thank you.